If a man could speak 40 languages, possess a verifiable IQ estimated between 250 and 300, the highest ever recorded, and graduate from Harvard at the age of 16, only to die decades later, alone and impoverished, as a low-level accountant, would you call his life a failure? The American public, the press, and the psychological establishment of the early 20th century certainly did. They called him the human calculator, the boy genius, and eventually the failure of Harvard. His name was William James Sidis. He was born in 1898, the godson of famed philosopher William James, and was slated to become the architect of the 21st century American mind. But William Sidis had a secret far deeper than his disdain for celebrity, far more complex than his self-imposed exile into anonymity. It was a secret wrapped up in the very structure of the modern American city, a relic of a time when the great electrical current flowed not just through wires, but through the minds of a select, terrifyingly brilliant few. It begins not with a birth, but with a series of frantic coded messages passed between the shadowy inner circle of the Panic of 1907, the year the American financial system nearly collapsed, and the very year Sidis was being pushed to the precipice of his legendary intellect. The most astonishing truth of his life, a fact suppressed and ridiculed for a century, is that the failure who faded into obscurity held the key to the most valuable and dangerous cipher ever conceived on American soil. A cipher that didn't just hide state secrets, but literally mapped the flow of all wealth and power in New York City's Gilded Age. To understand the forgotten life of William Sidis is to unlock a history of America that has been deliberately encrypted. We must chase his ghost from the lecture halls of Harvard to the hidden tunnels beneath Grand Central Station, from the lavish parties of the Astor family to the solitary, cramped room where he devised a language for an impossible fourth dimension. This is the true story of the genius who wasn't hiding from the world, but hiding what he knew about the people who truly built and controlled it. It is the story of the uncrowned king of American intellect and the secret city he chose to abandon. Prepare to see the foundations of modern America shatter, letter by encrypted letter. Part 1. The Architect of the Mind. Chapter 1. The Boston Blueprint. The year 1898 was less a calendar mark and more an epochal shift in the American psyche. The United States had just declared itself a global power by winning the Spanish-American War. The last gasps of the Gilded Age were echoing across New England, and the concept of genius was transitioning from romantic myth to scientific commodity. In this atmosphere of supreme confidence and boundless ambition, William James Sidis was born in New York City, though his fate was forged in Boston. His parents, Dr. Boris Sidis and Dr. Sarah Sidis, were European émigrés, brilliant, driven, and unapologetically radical. Boris Sidis, a celebrated psychologist and psychiatrist, fled anti-Semitic pogroms in Ukraine and earned 4 degrees from Harvard, pioneering the field of abnormal psychology. Sarah, a physician, was one of the first women to graduate from Boston University Medical School. Their son, William, was not merely a child, he was an experiment. He was to be the ultimate proof of their revolutionary pedagogical philosophy, that genius was not born, but made through intensive, calculated environmental stimulation from the moment of birth. The Sidis household was a relentless laboratory of the mind. Where other children played with dolls and toy soldiers, William played with logarithms and etymologies. At 6 months, he knew the alphabet. At 1, he typed letters on a custom-made typewriter. By age 6, William had mastered Latin, Greek, French, Russian, German, and Hebrew. He wrote a treatise on anatomy and a philosophical linguistic work on the origins of language. The press followed his progress with a mixture of awe and predatory anticipation. The narrative was simple. The Sidis method would breed an entire generation of intellectual giants, and William was the flawless prototype. But the most critical piece of his early education was one his parents never spoke of in public, something that began not in a textbook, but in the cryptic correspondences between his father and his godfather, the pragmatist philosopher William James. Boris Sidis was obsessed with the idea of a reserve energy in the human mind, a boundless, untapped power that conventional education failed to access. He believed the key to unlocking this reserve lay not in language or mathematics, but in pattern recognition at extreme speed. The Sidis family spent their summers in a quiet New Hampshire village, where Boris was less interested in vacation and more interested in working on a project with a handful of secretive associates, a project that predated the FBI's cryptographic unit by decades. In 1906, at the age of 8, William was introduced to his true, unacknowledged curriculum. Boris presented him with a massive hand-bound ledger, filled not with numbers or foreign words, but with dense geometric designs, shifting letter frequency charts, and complex polyalphabetic tables. This was the foundation of the Sidis Cipher, or as Boris privately termed it, the Metropolitan Code. This was no ordinary substitution cipher. It was a multi-layered, mutable encryption system, its keys derived from seemingly unrelated public data: the daily stock market ticker, the fluctuating output of New York's power stations, and even the ridership statistics of the newly built subway lines. The Metropolitan Code was designed to be unbreakable because its key was dynamic, a living algorithm woven into the very infrastructure of the burgeoning American metropolis. William, the boy, did not merely learn to decode it, he learned to see the city through it. For him, the columns of the New York Times financial section were not just numbers, they were the shifting gears of a massive hidden machine. And the cipher was the instruction manual. A verifiable anecdote, later suppressed, recounts William at age 9 solving a complex 5-variable equation that his father had applied to the daily movement of specific shares of the Metropolitan Street Railway Company. The calculation predicted an abrupt and otherwise inexplicable drop in the stock's value days before the news became public. Boris Sidis was not interested in the profit, he was interested in the proof that his son's mind could see the future of the city's power structure simply by reading its secret language. This was the first hint that William's genius was being groomed for a purpose far beyond academic prestige. It was a secret history of American power, being transmitted through a 9-year-old's mind. Chapter 3. The Harvard Phenomenon and the Shadow of Tesla. The inevitable spectacle arrived in 1909. At the age of 11, William J. Sidis entered Harvard University, the youngest student in the institution's history. His arrival was a national event, a circus of journalists, psychologists, and onlookers eager to witness the culmination of the Sidis experiment. But amidst the academic fervor, a different kind of current was running through the university and the city. The panic of 1907 had exposed the terrifying fragility of the American financial system. The men who saved it, J.P. Morgan, John Rockefeller, the anonymous Money Trust, had consolidated power in a way never before seen. They were the true architects of the modern metropolis, deciding which companies lived and which died, where the railroads would run and where the electricity would flow. It is here the narrative must diverge from the well-known story of the sad prodigy. One of the most vocal and ultimately silenced critics of this concentrated power was Nikola Tesla. Tesla, an electric pioneer, was not only a scientific genius but a visionary who saw electricity as a force for decentralized free energy. He also understood the deep and nefarious connection between power generation, financial markets, and military intelligence. Tesla, who often consulted with William's father on matters of hypnotic influence and unconventional energy, took a keen and apparent interest in William. Records show that in 1910, while William was impressing Harvard with his lectures on four-dimensional space, he was also spending his weekends not with classmates, but in secret meetings with a few of Tesla's close, disillusioned associates in a dilapidated workshop near the New York docks. The astonishing fact, William Sidis, barely a teenager, was tasked by this shadow cabal to refine the Metropolitan Code. Tesla believed the Money Trust was using complex, untraceable ciphers, ones that leveraged the very fluctuations of the city's power grid, to move vast, undocumented sums of wealth and manipulate public confidence. Tesla's goal was not only to crack the system, but to expose the power source of the entire financial oligarchy. The genius who was supposed to be mastering mathematics was now, effectively, a high-value operative in an undeclared economic war, building a weapon of intellectual counter-espionage.